Radio Club. We have a couple of visitors with us tonight, and we are very happy to have them. You're welcome anytime to the meetings. And if you would go ahead and mute your mic unless you're ready to speak, and that way we can eliminate background noise. I just wanted to take a second here and recognize the veterans. I know we've got some veterans in the group. If you're a veteran, would you raise your hand? Okay, Harold and Terry, Bob, Keith, missed one. Ron, good to see you, Ron. Bill, I'm not sure if I missed anyone, but I just wanted to say that if you're a veteran, we appreciate your service. The Forsyth County Amateur Radio Club appreciates your sacrifice and your service, and wish we were meeting in person. We would be doing something else. Anyway, I wanted to, I don't know if Dale is with us tonight. Dale has been under the weather, and I just wanted to wish Dale a speedy recovery. I wanted to announce that the business meeting this coming Monday, we will be finalizing dues for 2021. And if you have any concerns about dues, please attend the board meeting. Every member is welcome at the board meeting. Monday night, 7:30, a week from tonight, we'll finalize the dues. So if you have any interest, concern, please attend the board meeting and be heard. Wanted to mention that the Christmas meeting, we will not be meeting at Mi Pueblo for our dinner. We'll be having a Zoom meeting the second Monday of December. It's going to be very exciting. We're making plans for that and looking forward to it. In the interest of time tonight and consideration for our guest, I thought what we would do our business portion of the meeting after the presentation. It's with great excitement tonight that I introduce tonight's guest, who is the world's leading expert on modern rock and roll sound stage and also amateur sound. At this time, please welcome K9EID, Mr. Bob Heil. Bob, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. And hello, I'm so honored to be here. I love visiting club meetings, and I've done it for years, but we can't seem to do that now. So I think we're doing it better. I really do. I love the fact that we can have other people in as well as our club members. So it gives me a great pleasure to share some of the happenings that's happened to me throughout the years. I've been very blessed and honored to have great mentors, and you'll get into some of this. I thought before we get too far, I would like to give you a little history of myself and the company, and like where's this guy get off that he can talk about this stuff, because it's not dreamed up. It's all about science, and we don't have enough, I don't think, information out there anymore. All the handbooks, my goodness, you got to be a third-degree engineer to read them and understand. So I did something about it. So let's get started, and we'll take you through a little bit of where I came from before we get into some of the great demos. I've got some very, very good live demos that you're going to, I think, probably learn a lot. And it all starts for me in Marissa, Illinois. That's where I grew up. That's about 25 miles south of where we are now. It's about 50 miles southeast of the Great Arch of downtown St. Louis. But at the young age of 10, I was playing an accordion, but my parents, and they were not wealthy people, bought me a Hammond organ, one of the B3s in a church console. And I taught myself 2 years later, I got a job playing weekends at a restaurant. It was a very nice restaurant, still there, 4-star restaurant. And a year after that, I was thrust into a wonderful job. I became the substitute organist at the Fox Theater. My console was bigger than I was. But here's the part that you need to understand why I'm telling you this. Down in that lower right, you'll see that I'm behind a bunch of pipes. That's only a few of the 4,000 pipes from 1 inch to 32 foot in that Wurlitzer. That organ had not been played in 20 years, and Stan Can was the organist there. And he invited me to come and help him, not only play the substitute shows, but to help him voice and tune those organs. Now, tuning is not a big deal octavely, but voicing, oh, you have to learn to listen. All the harmonic values so that one note beside the next note beside the next note, they all had the same harmonic value, that one couldn't be muffled, one couldn't be this and that. And I was blessed to be able to do that. And of course, at that time, I was in high school, but I didn't have time for high school. And in 1956, I got my ham radio license. One of my buddies in high school had become a ham, and it ended up being my college education, as you're going to learn. It was an amazing what happened to me. I uh, I loved the Harvey Wells that I had my parents bought from Walter Ash Radio. I was taking organ lessons with the theater organist that hired me. We got to doing some lessons afterwards, and it was right across the street from good old Walter Ash. The station grew quickly. First of all, I was making a lot of money as a teenager. So my parents, they didn't have to worry about subsidizing this. I was doing my own. But over in that left corner, you see a little blue box. Man, I wish I had a better picture. I wish I had it. That was my first homebrew rig. That was a 2E26 on 6 meters. I was a technician for 17 years because the bands were open all the time. And I really, really enjoyed 6 meters. Today, it is ruined. Grid squares have totally ruined it. And we don't have the atmospheric conditions we had then. You can't have a conversation anymore. They just want your grid square and they're gone. How sad. But back in the late 50s, man, Gonset came in and they ruled the roost. And of course, I can't ever forget my Harvey Wells you see in there. No. But one day I'm listening around and I heard the most ridiculous sounding signal. What is this about? And the next night, it was the same thing about the same frequency. I'm going, what is going on here? And I just happened to hit a button that said BFO. I didn't know what it was. I hadn't used it before. And I happened to hit it and boom, it just was in the right place. And here comes his voice. Well, this man was on single sideband. That's that thing I had read about in QST and all the magazines. It's like, whoa, he's on 6 meters. So I went back to him and he was just absolutely just mesmerized. He said, I've been calling for weeks and nobody would come back to me. They thought I just had distorted audio. I was intrigued. I really was. And so every night I'd meet him at 7 o'clock and he was building a 6 meter single sideband transmitter. I didn't know at the time, but nobody had done this. It was not normal, but he did it. And he'd make adjustments and I could tell him yes or no, whatever. And so then I would tell him that I would come into St. Louis. Usually it was about 3 to 4 days a week, nights, and play the show. But the movie was 3 hours, and I would have that time before my 8 minutes. I only played 8 minutes in between the shows. He said, why don't you come visit me? So I did. I drove up in front of the building. I went in and I asked for K0DGE. Larry Burrows, is he here? Oh, yeah, you're talking about one of the engineers. Yes, he was. He was the chief engineer at KMOX CBS Radio. And here he is taking this little kid under his arm. And I learned so much. And I said, hey, Larry, would you build me one of those sideband transmitters? No, I can't do that. I'm thinking, what do you mean? You built it for you. But I'm going to teach you how. And he did. And what we did, had to build the Central Electronics 10B. That was the first thing we had to do. Got 10B going, but we didn't use all of it. We took out the final coil, wound it. It taught me how to to use a grid meter. And then we had to mix 36 megs with it. So 14 and 6, bingo. Larry taught me how to build a 36 megacycle oscillator using a 6U8. And I was just absolutely in heaven. Didn't know till much later that I was a piece of history, I guess. But the station continued to grow. I mean, big time grow. In that we had the Central Electronics you see on the extreme left, and I had built the Heathkit Seneca. Brand new radio came out, the NC300, so on and so forth. And I was having way too much fun, but I was learning things. That was my college education, part of it. And I got into antennas. My parents were so loving. I'm telling you, I was so blessed. They allowed me at the age of 18 years old to put up a 110-foot Roan, and I had a 36-foot long Telerex on 6 meters. And it's wow, this was heaven for me. I was learning so much, but I really got into antennas, big time antennas. And the next thing I did is I got rid of the Telerex, and I got a spiral array from Telerex. Now, what's interesting about this is that you'll notice these elements are not all horizontal and they're not all vertical. They were trying to find out what was going on because, you listen to a signal and all of a sudden they fade and you're wondering, wow, what's the matter here? How come that signal's fading? Well, that signal's fading because it changes polarity. It isn't that he got weak in signal. He changes polarity. And sometimes that polarity can get you up to 20 dB and you're gone. And wow, how's that work? Well, it's all about phasing. And in a few minutes, you're going to learn an incredible amount and some phasing demos that I have for you, and you'll never forget them. I put up a pair of Telerexes on 2 meters and I phased them. One was vertical, one was horizontal. And by using different phasing lines, I could control that. And these were all things I'm doing as a 19-year-old kid. But man, I was really having fun. And I, I I just continued to learn things and put them up. My parents were they were so wonderful. Had all kinds of antennas up in the late 50s, early 60s. One of the other ones I had in the upper corner there, it was a takeoff on a CB antenna called the PDL2. The man that owned Vivanti had built this for me. It was an experimental. You see, that quad could be switched horizontal or vertical. So what I did with that is I built a voting system with a little meter, and we measured this meter. Really was like an S meter, and the AGC line. And what happened was I could switch polarities whichever came in automatically. That was amazing, and I love doing those things. There's just no way about it. So I kept going, doing making a lot of fun for myself, but learning a lot. But then I built myself a 6 and 2 Thunderbolt. It's a kilowatt and a half on 6 meters and 2 meters. You can see the central electronics up in my above my head. And I didn't know how important this was to the industry. I'm just a kid playing with a CBS engineer. One day I get a call from Bob Drake. Bob Drake invited me to come to Dayton. He said, "We have a meeting once a year. It's a technical meeting, and we held it in the Biltmore Hotel downtown Dayton. And we want you to come and talk to us about your sideband transmitter, how you did it." I then found out I was one of the first 10 on single sideband on VHF with a kilowatt and a half. They had taken all the furniture out of one of the floors, and they had the Collins room, the Helicrafter room, the Central Electronics room, Telerex room, so on and so on. But all these people were there. And to this little kid, man, that was like movie stars. I had read about them. I knew who they were, but here I could talk to them. And I gave my paper and yeah, everything was great. Well, as you're probably guessing ahead, that was the Dayton Hamvention. That's what it turned into. In 1974, they moved out to the Hera Arena. But that's how Dayton started. And that is why when you go to Dayton, if we ever do get to go again, they have a lot of forums, because that was the bread and butter of the Dayton Hamvention, was the fact that they would invite all these great people to come in and do their thing. So I was mesmerized by all of this. It's my gosh, it was just a little kid, you know. Well, while I was there, guy came to me and he said, "We'd like to have you help us with an experiment. We build antennas, the J-Beam company." Hey, no, it's not in my vocabulary, and I'm wide open for all this, man. They sent me a 128 element 2 meter array. I was very lucky. We had a Motorola dealer just a few miles south that we were good buddies, K9 SGD. And then the K9 EBA, he was a contractor. He had a crane and all kinds of heavy equipment. They helped me put it up. Had to figure out all the phasing harnesses and so on. But it was absolutely an amazing antenna. 20, right at 24 dB of gain, forward gain. You land a kilowatt and drive it with that. Oh boy. I mean, I was doing moon bounce, things I knew nothing about at the time. But here again, it was all about learning. There's just nothing that I can say about it. It taught me so much because, again, I had the phasing and all the things we learned. So I continue to grow the station. In 1961, it was growing and growing. I had a converted 75 A1 receiver that Larry Burrows had built for me and converted it, all kinds of 6 and 2 meter converters and so on. But that time I really had kind of hit the front page. CQ Magazine hired me. I would write a monthly column about moon bounce and about VHF sideband. And then VHF Amateur came out. That was another magazine. These are all magazines about VHF sideband. That's one of the front pages of CQ. And that's how important that sideband, VHF sideband was. We had our own pages in the magazine. And oh man, it it was crazy. I also just continued building and building and building because it really was my college professor. In about 1963, that Motorola dealer, his name was Joe Hall, he said, "You need to take that transfer to your building and put it on the market." And so we did. We did it under his name because he had all the business savvy. I didn't, but that was my first product. It was a 6-meter transverter and a 100-watt amplifier with an 829B. I love 829Bs, but that was the first one. Well, at the same time, all this is going on, I'm still playing the organ. And I got this wonderful job at the Holiday Inn in St. Louis across from the airport. And I built a pipe organ that I put in there. And you'll see there's several things I rebuilt the thing. I mean, we had all kinds of different things over the 6 years I was there, 6 nights a week. But up in the right corner was the Fox Theater in later years. But I still had to voice and tune those pipes that were in the pipe organ at the Holiday Inn. And Schneidhorst was the name of the restaurant. It was a German restaurant. And we had all the things going on, and I built that organ, and I was just again in heaven with all this stuff. I'd play 4 hours a night, and I'd get off at 11 o'clock. Well, I'd get home about midnight. Hey, 6 meters! You got to be kidding! It was still open. People were going on, and I loved it. It just was great. But in 1966, things changed. I got tired of playing 12 years, 6 nights a week. I opened this little music shop and I didn't know what was in front of me. You never know. My parents owned a men's shoe shop. That's my dad standing there in the door down in that building down on the center of that top picture. I didn't even know he was there when that picture was taken back in 66. But I really had fun starting the music shop scene. And the reason I say that is that, come on here, there was nobody doing some of the things that needed to be done for the musicians. Music stores in those days were band instrument stores. And what started it all was that they'd bring their guitar amps in and they're all blown up. Well, hey, they had 6L6s and a 5U4. That's what's in the bottom of my Harvey Wells. I knew the circuit well. Well, the word got out to really the country, if not the world. There was this crazy guy down in Marissa, Illinois with a soldering iron. And I was also customizing Hammond organs and doing some really fascinating things for the rock musicians. I'd cut them in half and make the weight heavier or whatever. But we were just going crazy. But one day I get a call from the Fox Theater again, and they were throwing these big speakers away. These are 16-foot folded horns. And he said, hey, you like to have these. So I go up there, and here they are out in the alley, 4 of them. I couldn't believe it. So I brought them back to Marissa, and I put together a PA system. Here were 4 others that they had that were front load horns. And I had a friend of mine that was in the fiberglass business. We built fiberglass mid-range horns. And bingo, we had a really cool PA system. I didn't know there wasn't anybody else doing this at this level. I really didn't, because I hardly knew what was into the rock and roll stuff. I'm all of the George Wright, Jesse Crawford, all of the theater organists. But all of a sudden, I'm thrust into some of the country and rock musicians. I would be hired to take that thing to Kiel Auditorium, and they'd do concerts with Dolly Parton and Jerry Lee Lewis and Bucko and so on. But then one day I had a manager at one of those shows say, hey, I got this little band that we're starting. They're just going to start a tour. Would you take that thing on tour? And I said, well, I guess I could. I never have. So we took it. It was only 6 or 8 days. We go to Ohio, and it was the James Gang, Joe Walsh. About two of the shows in, we discovered we were both ham radio operators, and it's been a lifetime union and friendship of ours. But I just kept moving. Lots going on. But I got a call one day. Here's where the fun comes in. I get a call from the Fox, and he said, you still have that PA thing that we gave you? I said, yeah. He said, does it work? I said, yes, it does. He said, well, how about bringing it up here? I said, what's up? He said, well, this group came in here tonight and they didn't have a PA. It got confiscated last night by the DEA, the Drug Administration, and the FBI. I said, what's going on? He said, well, the sound man that owned the equipment was on probation. He was supposed to be out of the state of California. Really? Okay. So what's that mean to me? He said, here, talk to this guy. He handed the phone over to Jerry Garcia. I told Jerry what I had: Macintosh amps, JBL speakers, Olson front load horns, and so on. He said, get it up here. And so we did. And it was a historic night in the rock and roll world. You can go look this up in Google. The night rock and roll sound was born. And here I was. I had no idea of what was going on, other than I helped them with their sound that night. They were freaked out. They had never played through anything like that. And so amazing, but true. And we hit the front page of Billboard that this little music shop in Marissa, Illinois got that contract then. I started getting calls from everybody. And we were doing Joan Baez, Jeff Beck, the Beach Boys, Les Paul, and just on and on and on. Interesting thing there, that humble pie picture. Check out the guy in the left of that picture. Got some long hair, got kind of a white shirt and a blue black front. That's Peter Frampton. He came over here with Humble Pie. We did almost every concert Humble Pie did. But about a year after they got over here, they took him out and made a solo act. We're going to talk much more about him much later. But all of these things started happening. This was the first tour of a very famous band. Do you know who that is? Nobody ever can guess it. This was ZZ Top without beards. It was their first tour. And it's true. We become such good friends over the years. They're still using my microphones. I love Billy Gibbons. Gibbons is a wonderful guy. Wonderful guy. There they are a few years later. But, the band's discovered this guy with a soldering iron. That's what Pete Townsend used to say. Leave him alone, man. He's got his soldering iron. He makes us sound good. And he can drive the truck. And I did. But then it got real crazy. I got another phone call. That came from a guy, and he said, I need you in Boston tomorrow. I said, I can't do that. And they said, what do you mean you can't do that? I said, well, we're in Chicago with Chaka Khan, and we're on contract with her. He said, well, get out of it, and you got to be here tomorrow. I said, even if I did, I can't drive there. I'm in Chicago. I have a 40-foot semi. We were the first company, by the way, to put all the gear in one semi. Up until then, the band, one guy would have a Volkswagen van. He'd bring this, another guy, and they'd never get there at the right time and say, I said, we're going to stop this. Because I was a straight man. I have never, to this date, never tasted beer. I have never smoked a cigarette. For gosh sakes, did their drugs. And I looked at it like, wait a minute, we can do something about this. So I got a guy that I knew in Chicago. He covered the date. I said, but how am I going to get there? We can't drive. He said, you go out to the airport and you rent a Tiger Air Freight. I said, do what? You paying for this? I said, who are you? He said, we're the Who. I said, no, who are you? He said, we're the Who. And I'm going, wake up, Heil. This is a band you've heard of, but yeah, okay. Well, it was another historic night because they were ready to go back home. They'd come over here with new music. And the first night was terrible. It had these little bitty columns about 4 foot tall. It had about 6 of them to fill a 10,000 seat arena. Not going to happen. So I go up there with a brand new PA that I had designed for the Sun Company, and away we went and started a 6-year run. We were, again, great friends. Here's an interesting thing before I get into some more of the ham radio stuff and what we're really here for. This is a very interesting picture. Pete called me. He said, come over here. I want to talk to you. I go over there, and this is his studio up above his home. And those were some of the classic historic songs he wrote. And it was all done in his studio. Pete was an amazing guy. And we became very, very good friends. And to this date, we're still great friends. So we then had to listen to him tell me, hey, quad sounds are big right now. How about you building me a mixer that could do 4 channels and you could mix my Quadrophenia tour? And we did. We built the first and I think only sound system for a 20,000 seat arena that was in quad, had speakers in all 4 corners. And yeah, that's me on the wig. I figured if I had to run around with them, and I didn't have to do the stuff they did, but I kind of had to look like them. The stage layout was really great. This is a layout of the thing. Uh, these are things that nobody else was doing, and I didn't know that. I just get an artist to draw all that for us. Pete was great. You can see one of the monitors behind me. Now, think about this a minute. There's about 300 watts in that driver in his right in his ear. How come it didn't feed back? Hmm? You're going to know that answer in about 10 minutes. Amazing stuff. We had big monitors. Look at those. But none of them fed back. How come? How come? Well, we're going to learn. But I started building things, building lots of things, and very interesting things. The mixer down there with the channel, it was all modular. So if a guy had a mixer and the channel went out, no problem. You got a spare when you bought it. Same thing with the power amp up, and it was a 200 watt, and then I had a 400 watt, and they were they were all plug-in modules. You could fix it in about 5 minutes. Built studio monitors and all kinds of stuff. And ended up with 35 employees, all modular stuff. And I I learned it because of ham radio. And so many guys would, especially engineers, would say, "Where'd you learn this? What college did you go to?" Hey, I barely made it through high school. And a lot of them didn't believe me, but it was true. It was all ham radio. And then we built the talk box, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But we just kept moving, more and more stuff. The fiberglass shop up there in the right. And the bottom was talk box production for the great famous talk box. But all these people were building, building, building. And again, it was all because of ham radio. I was not an engineer. None of these people were engineers. We were just seat of the pants, but we made it work. But I did have great ears because remember, I learned how to listen. You're going to hear this throughout the next part of this. Listening is so important, dissecting what you hear. And we just kept building big systems, large arena systems. And then Joe and I got together after he had left the James gang. And we knew about this guy, W6UK. He was a ham. And he had a thing called the singing guitar. And I used to talk to him on 20 meters, by the way. He had a very unique sound, and how he got it was interesting. His wife was a singer with the King family, and he took one of these little guys. This is a throat microphone for a World War II pilot. You know, they couldn't use a microphone. It was just way, way too noisy. And so he strapped this on her, but instead of using it as a microphone, he plugged his guitar amplifier output into here. So when he would play his guitar and she would sing, the guitar would modulate her vocal cords and it sounded like the guitar was singing. You see, hams were very ingenious about this kind of stuff. Well, Joe and I had known about it, but we needed to build something for him because he used a very similar thing to record Rocky Mountain Way. And so I built a big talk box. Had a 100-watt driver in it, not just a 3 or 4 inch speaker like the first one. And Rocky Mountain Way become a big hit. I mean, a big hit. And We also were doing things with Bon Jovi. "Living on a Prayer" wouldn't be a hit song without the talk box. You can see the his microphone there to the left had the hose coming up that he would put on his mouth. And then another interesting thing happened to me. I, uh, when Peter Frampton came out of his humble pie scene, the manager called me and he said, "Look, I want I want you to make him sound really, really good." And I said, "Well, I will." Hmm. And we did.
Well, you invented it. You should know how it works. I don't play it though.
That is the talk box you were listening to for a second. Peter and I got to be really good friends. I mean, really good friends. And his little girlfriend got married in my home in Marissa. A lot of that happened. They'd come over here for 6 months and they either got a green card or got married or whatever. She called me and she said, "I need a Christmas present for Peter. Don't send me a guitar. He's got a lot of them." So we did. Bob Heil, Bob Heil. Crazy stuff. But again, it was all the ham radio in me. But then things really changed and got very serious about things. The TVRO world was happening. And I jumped right into that, building thousands, installing thousands of dishes in Southern Illinois in the late 70s, early 80s. But I was commissioned by the Hughes family the Hubbard family that had the contract with the first K-band satellite. And I had a dish in my backyard they had sent to me, a little 2-footer, and it was the experimental dish for DirecTV. And in 1994, I was doing radio TV in St. Louis also. Uh, that was the first introduction to the world from the CES show. I'm sure you remember and know about the Consumer Electronics Show. That was a live shot that was taken off the screen where I made the announcement to the world, "It's here. Our little 2-foot dish is here." I also was doing radio on TV and KMOX radio, and still a lot of people talk about hearing W0NJB and I late night. These were all things that happened big time. And I didn't realize how important this was going to be to my life. That lower left corner, that was the first dish that was installed DirecTV in a home in St. Louis. That's the vice president of RCA that came down and he wanted to see it because it was a very historic thing. They lower right, RCA sent in their inflatable dogs, Nipper and Chipper, and we were the first store to sell DirecTV. So it just kept going. And then I got involved with the theaters. We were putting in all these satellite systems and you're listening to it with a 3-inch speaker. Give me a break. So we started building custom theaters in homes. We're talking about big time. Macintosh amps, JBL speakers, clips, Pioneer, all of those things in $200,000 and $300,000 rooms. Again, it's all about ham radio. Uh, One of my theaters was on the Today Show. It was their Christmas present in 1995. They always have a Christmas pick. And those are some other rooms we did there on the left. One of the guys that I knew was Tom Holman. He had just graduated from the University of Illinois and did it in December, half year, and he didn't have a job. So he came and helped me. We built one of the mixers and stuff because I needed more expertise. Tom went on to work for George Lucas and developed THX, Tomlinson Holman Experiment. I was very honored and fortunate to go to Skywalker Ranch and teach some of the guys home theater. Also, at one of the shows, Ray Dolby came to me and he wanted me to use his new box. He said, "I got a prototype of this Pro Logic, and I, I'm, I'd like for you to premiere it. So I did. And you're going to learn about that in just a minute, because how do you get 4 channels out of 2 wires? You have a left and a right coming out of your tape recorder, your direct TV box, your cable box. Did you ever think about this? You have left and right. How did you get left, center, right, rears? How do you do that? Well, you're going to learn pretty quick. And then closing all of this so we can really get into it, I started designing a lot of things. And because of my radio shows and stuff covering 44 states, everybody was coming to me. Lady came in one day and said, can you help me? We live in this 100-year-old home and I want to put one of your theaters in there. Well, normally you would say, no, not me. It's not my vocabulary. That's what we did with it. And there's another one. Guy came, what do you do with that room? Well, you do that for it. And just on and on and on and on. You just wonderful, wonderful things that happened to me. And it was all because of ham radio. But enough of all that. After 12 years, I came back to radio. However, what happened to my great Art Collins audio? It was like, what? Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. What I was hearing were things that sounded like this. I go, what's going on here? I can't understand what you're saying. What are you doing? Well, I got my compressor on and I got my matching microphone. Really? What are you talking about? Well, I got my matching microphone. It came with the radio. Really? Okay. Well, the only thing matching is the same. It's painted the same color. And I soon learned what was going on. Let me get this back to normality. What was happening were these matching microphones weren't very good. And yet everybody, well, it's got to be. It came with the radio. No, it was pretty sad. Just because it came, just because it was painted the same color, it wasn't designed right. And I found out later, however, these companies don't build their own microphones. They fooled you for years. And you're going to, I got another story about that, but how did I learn all this? Well, I learned it because I got another phone call. I got a phone call from Paul Klipsch. I'd heard about Paul Klipsch. I didn't know about Paul other than he was a genius of audio. He was the father of the hi-fi movement. He wanted to come and see this 10,000 watt PA. So he flew out his plane up to Marissa, and oh man, it changed my life, everybody. It really did. He was so kind to me. I figured he was going to cut me off at the knees, but he didn't. He was much taller than I. Well, why did you do it this way? Well, how come you did that? Well, and he was on a search. He had never seen anything like this. He was mesmerized by it. He told me later on, well, put me in his plane, took me back to Hope, Arkansas, where his plant, and he lived there. And what happened was amazing. And it's what we're here tonight for. Paul guided me to the studies of Bell Labs. He referred to the idea factory of the 1920s. Bell Labs was a consolidation of AT&T and Western Electric. They were the manufacturing arm. There were 4,000 scientists and engineers assigned to this newly created Bell Telephone Labs. And that was fully dedicated to researching how our ears worked. Remember that. They were researching why we were hearing, what we were hearing, how we were hearing, and what frequencies were most important to understand the spoken word. There were 4,000 scientists doing this because they couldn't figure it out. What are you talking about, Heil? Well, when they put the telephone system together in New York, had 2 wires, and they ran them all the way to the West Coast. Okay, gotcha. The only problem was every 50 miles across America, think about this, in the 1920s, they had little relay stations to keep the frequency up, to keep the voltage up. Bingo. But what happened? What happened when they got to the other end? This is what happened. It's like, we can't understand the difference of an F and an S and a P and a B. There's no speech articulation. Everything's flat. Everything's right. What's wrong? So what they did is they took two of those scientists, Dr. Fletcher and Dr. Munson, and they said, find out what's wrong. And they did. They found out our ears are certainly not flat. So for all of you who think that you hear equal, nope, none of us do. And what's even crazier, you'll notice, the louder it gets, it almost becomes flat. That's why kids like to listen to music loud, because they hear all the cymbals, they hear all the mid-range, and they hear all the low end. And so, it's not about being flat. And also, those 4,000 scientists, they discovered that between 2 and 3K is the magic spot, 2.5K. I'm going to do this for you. Oh, let me get this all set up flat. Here we are, flat. Okay, right there. And get that going. I'm going to take 2.5 away. Check it out. Here goes 2.5. We're going to just take out 2.5. I'm not doing anything else. But listen to what happened. What happened? The articulation, the F's and the S, the P's and the B's are gone. Now put that 2.5 back in. Hello, radio. Oh my goodness. Now we have some very beautiful articulate audio. That's what you need to break the pileups. That's what you need to make your signal on top. And when we get into single sideband, it's even more important that the transmit audio response should be from 350 to 2700 or 3000. Little bit of compression, not much, and a little bit of pre-emphasis in the microphone at 2K. And that's exactly what we do. And you'll notice in that waveform, you'll notice that at the top, it's unprocessed. But when you process it with a little equalization and some compression, look how much bolder it got. And a lot of people, I hear it all the time. They don't realize how important these things are. And of course, the one thing about all of it is in 1982, I come back to radio, and all this audio was terrible. So what I did is I built the first equalizer for ham radio. Again, I didn't know that there wasn't any. I'd been out for 12 years. And for gosh sakes, I figured somebody would have figured it out, but they didn't. So I wrote this article for QST in 1982. It got the cover award. I didn't even know I had cover awards. And I had the article, you could build it. But I didn't understand. A lot of the guys, they didn't want to build it. They wanted me to build it. So what I had to do there is I had to reopen the plant, because of the knowledge that I learned from Paul and listening abilities, tuning that Wurlitzer and all that stuff. It brought serious changes to ham radio with the equalizer. And I really got into it big time, and I knew that we needed help. We were an industry that not a lot of people want to pay attention to us. But an interesting thing happened. I got a letter from Dr. Inouye in 1999. Dr. Inouye owns ICOM, Inouye Communications. He sent me a picture of his station. It was then, remember, there's IC 781. That was a fantastic transceiver. It was the first one that had a screen. It was actually a VCR chip. Well, he also had our gold line microphone and my equalizer. He liked very much what it did. Yeah, darn right it did. He wanted me to help because he had a new line of radios and he wanted to use that. And so from that day, Pro 1, Pro 2, Pro 3, all the way through to the 7610, the 7300, the 7854, 7851, all of the ICOM radios throughout the entire line has my equalizer in it. Dr. Hasegawa came to me at Dayton 2 years later. I want to do it better. So I did a parametric for him. And we're going to talk about that in a while because the parametric is a great way to go, but it's very difficult. And I told him then, I said, you're going to have problems. What be the problem? I said, it's going to be education. What do you mean? I said, education in that you have not just two controls. Here, I pick the frequencies. 160 on the low end. Yes, you can plus or minus, boost or cut. Where do you think the top is? How about 2.5K, the magic frequency? You can boost or cut it. Okay, cool. But in the parametric, you are the engineer. You have 9 controls, 9 of them. And you have to think about what you're doing. And it's a shame because the manufacturers, they don't help you. They don't, not at all, because I don't think they know, but that's another story. You have 3 filters. You set the first, let's take the first one. You have 3 controls. You have the frequency. So you dial in the frequency. You want to dial that at around 200 hertz. The next one is bandwidth of that 200. And the third one, third knob control, is a booster cut. You want to notch it. You want to get rid of that low end because everything in the low end muddies it up. The second filter, you put it over. There's some real boxy things, I call them, hangs around 1,000 to 1,200 cycles. So you set that second filter at, usually I set it at 1,200. Bandwidth, 1 octave, and I notch it a little bit. But then the all-important one is the third filter. Dial it up to where? 2.5, bandwidth of an octave, and boost that son of a gun. And there you go. Now you have to listen. You have to listen to yourself. I like to do it in another receiver with headphones. No, it doesn't sound like what I think I sound like, but whatever you hear, do it. That person you hear, does he have good articulation? Does he have too much bass? You can do it. But what you want to do to set up all these radios today, you want to roll off everything under 100. I know there's going to be guys, oh, Heil's full of crap. Some of these guys, they're running down 50, 30 cycles. That's crazy. It's so muddy you can't understand what they're saying. Well, you need to have a different receiver. It's wider. No, we're only 3K wide. If you're over 3K, you're going to be really causing trouble to your neighbor. And we don't want to do that. Respect your neighbor. So you want to roll everything off below 100. I roll it off under 200. Maximum speech articulation. We already learned that from those 4,000 scientists. It occurs between 2 and 3K. I just proved that to you. That's where you want your RF to be. And it's all proved by the Fletcher Munson guys. Now, look at this. Look at the screen. Check this out. I can't make it any simpler. How important it is to equalize. Because there's a lot of guys. Oh, I have it all the time. Oh, I don't need no darn EQ. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, Bill said I sound just fine. Yeah, well, I'm telling you, you can improve your station just by simply doing the right equalization with the right microphone. Here's the situation. Right now, without any EQ, that's what your signal looks like. Here's the bend right here. But if you narrow that up and roll that low end out. You have so much RF. Where's it going to go? Where's it going? It's going to 2. Yeah. Now you have some really sweet articulation, and all of that wasted RF has been chopped out, gone. And that's why you need to equalize, so you can center that RF right in the middle of things. And it stands to reason once you think about it, but you have to balance it a little bit. The other thing that's so very important is how to use the microphone. The distance of the microphone is so important, so important. And yet a lot of people don't realize what's going on. If every time you double the distance, you lose 6 decibel. Are you listening to me? 6 decibel by doubling the distance. Well, then I'll just turn up the gain. Well, then all you're going to do is pick up a lot of room echo and noise, and no more arm length things. Here, I'll prove it to you. Never be more than a couple of inches from a microphone. Never. And if I back off from that, listen what happens. I lost my transient. I lost all the transient response, the dynamic range. Oh, well, turn it up, Heil. Yeah, just crank it on up there. Okay, I will. But now it lost all that. It's not in your face where you need it to be. So we're going to bring it back up here where you should have it. Have to lower the gain because I'll distort things. It's so important. That's why I brought booms to this industry. Until I came along, this little baby never existed in this industry. The broadcasters used it, but not ham radio. And now tens of thousands of them out there. Thank you very much. We have all kinds of them, little ones, big ones, whatever. But it allows you to put that microphone where you need it. I don't think you can see it. I have a really cool one. It's a little one that I mount on my desk. And it's really great because I can put my mic in it and I'm hands-free. Everything's great. But you never want to be arm's length. And it just doesn't work, everybody. It's science. It's not what Bob Heil wants. I'm trying to convey to you how important all of this stuff is. And it's probably things you hadn't heard about before. See, that's what really bugs me. There's so many things going on. And you want to get rid of the plosives. The plosives is when you talk in a microphone, if you don't have a windscreen, and I don't have a lot of air exiting my voice, but some of the sounds, they come out as a burst of wind. And those plosives, they really, really cause some problems. But the fix is not to speak directly into the microphone. You will notice all night, I'm kind of across the microphone. And I also build these microphones so you can do that. All these other matching things, give me a break. You can't do that to those. They're not designed to do that. But my microphones, you can do that. And you want to angle it a little bit, angle it down, but don't speak right into it. It doesn't change the sound, especially with our microphones. That's very important because what we're after is power focus. You've probably never heard of this before, but the right microphone element delivers to your voice the same advantage that a Yagi compared to a dipole gives you. You restrict the bandwidth. I showed you that a while ago. Get that restricted bandwidth in there. Put all your power in mid-range 2.5. Yeah. And the pattern is important. You see, these matching microphone things, they don't care about that. They're just there. But my whole situation is the pattern, and we don't want to lose speech articulation. Now, remember about the narrow, I showed you with the balloon? Well, here's a great chart of what we're doing there. Narrow it down. And when you do, all of your power becomes up in the region where it is so important. All of the articulation happens there. And so we try to help you with that. And a lot of guys will say, well, I'll just go out and I'll just buy me one of them Behringers. Well, the problem you have with the mixers you buy is a big problem. Number one, they're not RF proofed. But secondly, they have filters. They're bass and treble. Yeah, you can call them tone controls or filters. They center on 80 hertz and 10K. They're for music. And so they just tilt the top end and the bottom end, and the mid range just kind of floats along. Well, that's what we want. So those kind of mixers don't work. If you want to do a mixer, you find one that has 3 bands of EQ. I use an Alesis mixer. I love it because it's got a parametric mid, and I can move that mid around. It's really great. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Let me set it all up. It's equal right now. Let me, I can roll off. Here's the mid. That's the mid centered at 400 cycles. There's the mid at a K. But we're just, it's one knob, and I'm just rotating it. I'm going to take it on up to, and you'll know when I get there, 2.5K. When I get there, beautiful. We just have very nice articulation when I crank that 2.5 up. And the parametric mid allows us to do that. And Alesis makes I think it's only 130, 40 bucks. It's incredible. And if you want to do that, fine. But we don't really need to do it, because with the right microphone and the situation of adjusting your radio, we're going to get into that in a little bit, then you don't have to worry about any of that. It's kind of like done for you. It's one of the things that when I started building years back, I said, we have to do something. And so I did. And the first thing I did after we reopened the plant and so on, I started really working on, that was the lab, I working on elements that are tailored. And back then it was the HC4s and 5s. Now it's the HC7. It's just a magical element, because I've done all that for you. Just plug it in and talk. I've already put that nice big peak in it. And that's the historic place right there where we developed those elements and a lot of other things. We did the 10 meter FM thing, and we could be here all night talking about that. I was the father of 10 meter FM, teaching people how to take CB radios and turn them into 10 meter FM. We built some little boards for it, so on. And then, of course, the famous Gold Line microphone that has tailored microphone elements. So we really try to bring you things that you need. And the HC4s and 5s, look at the chart, look at the graphs on those things. HC7's the same thing. And so you have the elements working for you. And we were the first people to build large dynamic elements. Shure failed. Electro Voice couldn't do it. How I know that? Because their engineers come to me. Bob Schuline was one of the engineers for Shure for years. He came to me at one of the shows after they fired him. I don't understand what that deal was about, but they didn't need him. He said, that's crazy. They couldn't get it to work. Well, I did. And it was incredible. Well, what's the big deal about a big diaphragm? Joe Walsh, my good friend Joe. I had a home in California for about 6 years, working in the studios with Joe and some of the guys. By the way, this microphone's kind of special. We build that, and all of the proceeds go to the breast cancer. We did that for a couple of years. It was quite something. I'm going to unplug this microphone. Plug in. Oh, got to change. It's got a lot of mid-range in it all by itself. There we go. This is the great PR40. Broadcast industry's gone crazy over this because I designed this microphone for Joe when he said, hey, build me a microphone that I don't have to be stuck in front of it. You've seen these guys. They're just stuck right in front of the darn thing, and they can't move. They're ball mics. Well, Joe wanted to be able to move. Well, we can move 180 degrees, no problem. And it doesn't change tone if you're listening. It doesn't change tone. But what I did is I opened up the bottom of this large 1.5-inch diaphragm. Every other manufacturer on the planet have 4 little holes around the outside for the rear rejection. That information will be out of phase. Well, it's not enough. Well, we did it big time. I opened up the whole bottom of this element. And now all of the information behind me, in front of me, comes up in the bottom 360, out of phase, gone. And here we go. Watch this. You know what we do up here, but the minute I get behind the phasing plug, I'm 40 dB down. It is gone. Oh, it's still working, but it's 40 down. I don't pick up all the junk behind me. I don't pick up in the broadcast industry. They usually have glass in front of them. Bounces right back on you. No problem with the PR40. That's why it has become the darling of the broadcasters. And I'm very, very blessed by that because I help them. And see, a lot of people, you know, they're in business for a lot of many things. I'm in business because I'm having fun, but I'm really honest with you. I'm in business because I'm helping people. The ham radio thing has brought me such incredible things, knowledge and stuff. And so we are able to build very interesting microphones. We have our own custom shop. We can build microphones to do different things, but they all use our elements. There's basically only 3 different elements, but they all help you in what I'm discussing with you. But here comes the best part of the night. I love to do this because people don't realize what's going on. Oh, by the way, let me do something else. I'm going to unplug. We're not playing games here. I'm going to have to bring up the gain because this thing has no gain. It's your wonderful matching microphone, okay? I'm not playing games with you. This is a nice working microphone. Okay. It's just sad. The rear rejection, there isn't any. It's just unbelievable. But it's painted the same color, buddy. It's got the name on it, so it's got to be good, right? No, it doesn't. We've proven this all night, and we're not over. Just a little side note I throw in there. Here comes the big part of the night, and never. Now, I plugged in a Y cord. Oh my gosh, look how much more gain my microphone has. Of course it does. I have 2 microphones plugged into the one input. And I do that purposely because I don't want anybody to think I'm playing games here. You can't play games with this. Both these microphones are PR22. It's my favorite microphone for ham radio. It's very articulate. I was commissioned by Paul Rogers from Bad Company to build him a microphone that they didn't have to equalize. This thing is flat response, but listen how articulate it is. Wow, it's great. Okay, here we go. Now I'm going to take a little sidestep for what I really wanted to show you. You're never going to forget the next 5 minutes. I guarantee you, you're going to, when this thing's over, you're going to call your buddy and say, you know what I learned? What happens if you're running 500 watts, you don't have any EQ, you got your matching microphone, and you're just going crazy, but nobody can understand what you're saying, and you can't make the pile up. So what are you going to do? Ha, no problem, Heil. I'm going to buy a kilowatt. I'm going to get me a kilowatt. Okay. You're going to double your power, right? Okay. How many decibel are you going to increase your signal? This is science. This isn't somebody up here just making noise. I'm bringing you science. You double your power, 3 decibel. Really, that's it. 3 dB. Well, do you know how loud 3 dB is? You're about to hear it. When I bring these 2 microphones that are in phase together, the meter on my mixer will go up 3 decibel. Are you ready? It's going to get pretty loud. This could be $2,000 to buy a kilowatt amplifier. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. What? Remember what I've said before several times about listening? Please do this for me. Close your eyes and listen. When on the count of 3, I'm going to take away 3 decibel. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do it again. Talking into both of them. 1, 2, 3. You know why you couldn't hear it? Because the human being cannot detect 3 decibel unless we would be in some multi-million-dollar anecho chamber and all that. But in our little home studios and ham shacks, no, you can't detect it. Well, now wait a minute. I could get you at least 10 decibel just with equalization. I've proved it to you several times tonight. So I don't want to hear this. Oh, no darn EQ. Yes, we do. Absolutely. But here comes what I really wanted to show you. We're going to get really serious about my favorite subject. I'm going to unplug one of these. A magic little plug here. This magic little plug is backwards. Pin 3 is hooked to 2 and 2 to 3. But hey, it's still working. It works just fine. There's only one problem, everybody. It's out of phase. Well, who cares? Huh. I wish we had at least 2 hours. It's my favorite subject. Do you know what happens when you take 2 signals out of phase? Nothing. They cancel. Nothing. The bomb could go off. You wouldn't hear it. Because this element that's in phase, when you speak in it, the element goes down, the diaphragm. This one, it's coming up. They cancel each other. Oh my gosh. I mean, like, what planet have I been on that I haven't heard it? You haven't heard it because they don't talk about it. And it just drives me crazy that these are the things that we need to know, but they just don't tell us. How did Dr. Yagi build his Yagi antenna to have gain in one position? He did it by figuring out, not with a computer, it was way years before, he could have the director so long and so far out from the driven, he could get gain, put one behind so long, it was out of phase. Whoa. So you see, you could really do some cool things with phasing. And so now I ask you these questions. This is interesting. And there again, why has no one ever talked to us about it? When Wes Shum came up with his, and it wasn't Art Collins, by the way, Wes Shum of Central Electronics brought us single sideband. A lot of people don't know that. They think it was Collins or somebody. No, it was Wes Shum. How did he get rid of the carrier? How did he get rid of the other sideband? Some idiot comes up on top of your nice signal and how do you get rid of him? Hit the notch filter. How's that work? Ha. The receiver takes his signal out of phase. He's gone. Noise canceling on headphones. That just on and on and on. And why are we not being told these things? This is the way my microphone worked. There it is, a chart of very nice graph that Gene W4IQN does for me. He does all these great graphs. It's real simple once you see it. I don't have those 4 little holes up there. The whole bottom of that element's open. They come sliding up the collection tube in these panels, and bingo, that's how you do it. Nobody had ever done it before. The RE20 thing doesn't do it. The RE20 was a sad microphone. Oh, well, Heil, you're full of crap. Rush Limbaugh's got one. Yeah, but he's got $5,000 worth of processing behind him. You didn't know that, did you? And it ticks me off that everybody gets all the hots about a microphone that's almost 60 years old. Come on. Because what's happening now, the broadcasters, the Sirius Radio just dumped all theirs. They're all using they just got 250 PR40s. So many broadcasters. I didn't build this for ham radio. I really didn't, because it's big and broad. My God, it gets down to 28 cycles. No other microphone will do that in the industry dynamic. But the hams love it because it does such great things. Here comes the piece de resistance. I had a home for about 8 years down in the Ozarks. Second home. I've always wanted to do this. I never had the space. I put up a phased array on 75 meters. I know what you're thinking, because it's what I thought for years. Oh my God, here's another $5,000. No, it's 200. No, not even two. It's about 25 bucks to do it. Okay. 2 dipoles and about 25 bucks. Here's how it works. And I think you're going to be really pleasantly surprised what happened.
We have just completed the installation of a 75-meter phased array antenna system, consisting of a pair of coaxial dipoles mounted atop a pair of 55-foot telephone poles. We put them in an inverted V fashion, and the poles are 64 foot apart. These are 500 foot from the operating position, fed with RG213. In order to make the antennas directly from east to west, we use a delay line, a 43 foot here on 75 meters that's switched in and out of the driven element, either east or west. The downlead length is 126 foot. We take all of that coax, the downlead length, the 43 foot phasing delay line, and mounted them in a container, one of the plastic container boxes that we actually buried, and just the top of it shows. It's all sealed, so it's waterproof. But that's the way we get to switch all the components from 500 foot using one of the Amatron RCS 8V remote switches. It really works well. Take a listen to how we can get at least 10 to 20 dB difference east to west.
Like a lot of people do. Mine's usually 3 inches or so. That's just after I get done mowing it. And I know, probably, we get a dry day. I'm going to have to lay out there and mow. That's just all there is to it, because, if you leave it that high, when it starts growing in it all, it gets looking ragged pretty quick. So it's to that point now, and
the system really performs on weak signals. Take a listen as we switch to the direction they're coming from. Also note the preamplifier makes no difference on 75 meters on this signal. The preamp will, of course, make the meter read higher, but in many cases, the preamplifier does not cause the weak signal to be more readable. Check it out.
Hey, Sue. Yeah, well, I see they introduced big display on it, and I don't know if that is their form of portable, or what that is. Your wife hooked up to your computer.
Well, I don't think there's any question about how wonderful phased arrays can be. I also had a pair on 40 meters halfway down those telephone poles. It took nothing to do that. But I always figured, like a lot of us, like, oh, that's going to be really expensive. And no, not really. Not really. And we're just so happy with some of the things that you can do with these things, but nobody wants to help us. That's the problem. Even the manufacturers, Setting up your DSP, it's like, what do you do with it? And it depends on your voice. I can tell you that. It depends very greatly on the microphone you selected, not just the matching thing. And the audio objectives. Are you going to, you do rag chewing, you do DX, what are you doing? But you can do your optimum settings while you listen to your own signal in a separate receiver. Some of the monitors work good, but not really. RF gain is very important. Check this out. You never, ever want to run your RF gain open. And here's the perfect demonstration of that.
Mostly just involved in right turn on the
That noise behind it.
The 40 and 80 meter nets, and that's pretty well that's what I'm limited to. I used to be on packet, but I don't enjoy the computer part of the into the running the computers at all like we used to. So I don't really have much to tell you on your question, but I can still.
There's just no question about it that these things are in your receiver, but you have to understand how to use them. AGC is also another important thing. AGC really bugs me because it has the same effect.
Right now is really old technology that just kind of got forgotten, and somebody like Bob or anybody else would,
There it is, slow.
say, I wonder about
Background noise is gone.
Stuff that we used to
Lower the
do
RF gain.
and apply it to a new
Sound like FM.
application, and it works great. So
But go up here,
that's very good. I love the
increase that
technical
RF, and now
abilities
fast
that
to AGC.
come along with this hobby. The technician class was
These are reasons that we really need to learn about our receivers. I wish sometimes we had many hours. The setup for the transceivers are simple. ICOM is very interesting. It's all by itself. First of all, it has a very low gain mic preamp, so you have to be careful. You can't just use every kind of microphone in it. And we were commissioned by ICOM to build that microphone for that. But here's how you set it up. You set the bass, and then in the EQ now, set the bass to -3. We're going to roll off that low end. The treble to +4 for DX. If you're just rag chewing, maybe +2, just a little bit, but who knows? That's up to you. Set the compression to medium, not very much. Mic gain to about 2/3 scale for dynamic elements. And the other thing about this is that in all of these transceivers, they have an ALC meter. When I started working with Yaesu, I got my way with the 9000. I love that transceiver. It had everything that we needed that has never been done. First of all, it had a 3-pin XLR broadcast connector. All transmitters should have that because it's balanced line. Balanced line, so that if any noise lands on that signal, it's canceled out because of that. So it had a 3-pin XLR. It had parametric EQ, and there was no mic gain except the ALC meter. There was no ALC. It was not labeled ALC. It was labeled mic gain, as it should be. And that's how you set up every transmitter, every one of them. You look at the ALC meter, you get your power where you want it, and you start increasing the mic gain, watching the ALC meter, and you just want it to, every once in a while, flash to the red. That's how you set mic gain. You don't set mic gain by calling Bill. Hey, Bill, how it sound? No. You do it by watching that ALC meter, listening to yourself in another receiver, you got it made. You got it made. And all of these things are on my website. If you've never been there to these things, here's the thing about the DSP setup on the Yaesu. It tells you, and the filtering I did a while ago, that told you how to do it. There you are. You go to my website, heilsound.com, support, and there's about 50 pages called all things ICOM, all things Yaesu, all things Elecraft. They're all there, and they will tell you what's going on. I was very, very honored that during all of my work with Dr. Inoue, he said, you need to build me a better microphone, because they don't build their own. So don't let somebody lie to you. So I did. I built a microphone specifically for ICOM. It won't work on a Yaesu. It won't work on a Kenwood. I have my own cable. We're going to get into that in a little bit too. My own connector plug. And it doesn't have any a detachable cable. You plug that into an ICOM, and everybody's going to tell you, wow, what did you do? Set the bass about -1 or 2, set the treble about +3. Bingo. It's really good. And there again, these things are all out there on our site, and everybody should be able to, you should be able to really help the situation of your own station. And in closing, I hope some of you got involved in our pine board project past year or so. This is really great. I love to get people to build, and we did it. Over 1,000 people built things for it. I started out with a little simple field strength meter, but then each week I got into building this. It took us a year to do it, and we built what I called the pine board project, because back in the day, that's how we built stuff. And a couple of guys built it on metal, but it's a little harder to do. But it had a power supply. Yes, the power supply was right at 500 volts. You got to be careful, respect the high voltage. And the equalizer, mic preamp with an equalizer, of course. And the final had a 6AG7, and it worked great, and I still use it on the air today. It puts out about 5 watts. I drive one of my amplifiers, and bingo. So you can go to my page, heilsound.com, and about halfway down that, you'll see Pine Board Project. And I think there's 100 pages in there. It's all there. What I liked about it was what Gene did for us, W4IQN. Oh my gosh, look at his drawings. They're better than Heathkit. They really are. A lot of people built the pine board and never had instructions. All they needed was Gene's drawings. Isn't that great? I mean, this is great stuff. And again, I just want everybody to build things. But I just have a real problem in that a lot of people don't care. I don't know what the big deal is, but they don't. Last but not least, oh, I should tell you one other thing before we close her up here. I hate hand microphones. Why? Because I hate them because they all sound like this. They're very hollow. Whenever you put a element in a clamshell, that's what you get. Well, it's a matching microphone. I don't care about that. They don't care about that. So how'd I fix it? Very simple. I am not doing anything except this. It doesn't sound like a hand mic. How'd I do that? Very simple. I detuned. Come on here, focus, buddy. I put a grill in the top of it. And when I did that, it detuned that cavity. And so now we have a very nice signal. And if I want to play games with it, I can go up to the equalization, add a little bit of low end. If you close your eyes, you would never guess that I was on a hand mic. So they don't have to sound crappy anymore. Yeah, don't talk right into them. Oh, I hear so many people. I just want to come through the speaker. Don't do that. All that. No, talk across the side of it. Great. but our hand mic is just absolutely the best. I just proved that to you. Here comes my goodie. Okay, here we go. We talk about the transmitter. Well, what about the receiver? You see, working for these companies, I have a real problem because I'll suggest things and then they look at me like I'm crazy. They're not going to change anything. Everybody's buying a lot of stuff. All receivers have the same problem. They have 1 watt, maybe 2 watts at 10% distortion and a 3-inch junky speaker they put in a box painted the same color and charge you $200 for the speaker, and you have sucked it up because there wasn't anything else. Well, there is now. And it bugs the living daylight out of me that nobody has ever done anything about it. Well, I did. And you're about to experience it. Notice I said experience. I built what we call the parametric receive system. This is a system that has 3 filters in it. The high filter sitting at 6K, the low filter at 160 hertz, plus or minus, boost or treble. But what did I do with the mid-range? The most important, we learned so many times tonight, 2.5K, right? Well, it's parametric. You set the gain, usually about 3 or 4 o'clock, but then you got to dial in what you need to make that signal come through. I have some recordings that I did of some fellows. This is right off the air. One of the things that it has on it that's kind of cool is I install a jack for recording. And you come out of that jack and you can plug it into your recorder. That's what I did here. So let me bring up the audio. Here's the way you hear him.
Echo India 8 Bravo.
There's the way you hear him.
EI8LB calling advice.
Here are a couple of usual single sideband signals that are mushy and bassy, difficult to understand. You can add some speech articulation just by adding some 2.5 mid-range.
Back to flat. Do you where you hear him?
You know, a sideband, but
Here we go.
It's not the same as a rig built, just for 2-meter sideband. The receivers will never compare.
There's the way you hear it.
So it's kind of nice that, again, ICOM technology.
Back to
It
flat.
was nice enough in my county, which was the worst, by the way.
Where you
in the
hear him.
area. They gave me 5 years seniority, but I was basically starting at the bottom. So many times people who spend 10,
Back to
20
flat.
years in the Navy or whatever the military is and retire, people say, well, you got it made. No, you don't.
The next one is a D104. D104 is nothing but highs. And guys trying to use this just rag chew drives me up a wall. Well, I don't care anymore what they got because here we go.
Sure enough, I can copy it.
We're going to put some
I had a
low
couple
end
off
in
fun
it.
the other night. I thought, well, I wonder if I can copy that. It had about 30 words a minute, and so I speeded up the tape, and sure enough, I can copy it.
Here's the way you hear him. Uh-oh, we're going to get back. Let me play this one more. There's that DX station.
Echo India 8 Bravo, Lima Bravo, EI8LB calling advice.
I don't think I have to say any more. It's an amazing piece of gear. It has 2 headphone amplifiers. One for the logger, one for the operator. You also could plug your headphone left and right, and if you had a hearing imbalance, you can balance it up left to right. And then that other one is a record out. The speaker I'm very proud of. Paul Klipsch taught me this years ago. Took the speaker outside in free air, did a cone resonance. Then we tuned the cavity to that so there's no phase distortion. And there's a 3.5-inch tweeter. But the best part is there's a 25-watt amplifier in the back with not 1, but 0.1%. We're talking about hi-fi level. No, this isn't hi-fi radio, but I don't need to have any more distortion. And that's what bugs me is so much of this stuff. People don't realize how important it is to get rid of distortion. And so that's what I wake up every morning. I really honestly mean this to you. I'm always thinking about things. My latest one is building things for the backpackers and the little 705. This new BM17 is an amazing product. And we build a really nice one for a handy talkie. Handy talkie microphones are a scourge. Not anymore. Not anymore. That's what I'm supposed to do for you. And that's exactly what I do. But one of the things that always has bugged me has been the connectors. Told you earlier about it. The connectors are a joke on your matching microphone. They're Foster connectors made for the CB back in the 60s. And they just somewhere surfaced into the ham radio and nobody changed it until I came along. We had to get special permission to do this from Foster, but I did. You'll notice how wide the ring is. So we don't need needle nose to go in there and adjust, tighten it down. It's real simple. And the cable clamp, every one of these darn microphones, they use heat shrink around them because they don't meet up with the cable. Well, I made my cable to meet up with the connector, and the connector to this, I made my own wire. And then the second one out of there is a push to talk line. But that wire cable clamp, oh my gosh, I could pull my car with it. But here's how I did it. Cable, wire is a joke. I have fixed, and I really mean this, hundreds of RFI problems guys will come to me with just because they have matching wire. All these companies, what's wrong with their engineers? Where in the heck are they? The push to talk line is DC. That's the blue and the red you see. Well, the audio is usually just one. The audio is very sensitive AC. And when you take the DC inside that shield and they're all together, oh my gosh, all kinds of problems come flying out of that power supply into your audio. I fixed it. First of all, I used two 18 gauge wires because we use them for all of my microphones of the PR series are balanced for the most all of the transceivers today have a balanced input, which I had a lot to do with, but they don't use it. They don't know about it. But if you know how to secretly wire it, wow, you can get rid of a lot of crap on your signal. And so you have AC and DC separated. It's wonderful. And I'm very excited to bring all this to you. I hope you're catching Ham Nation on 8 o'clock each weekend. I'm very honored. I received recently a PhD degree, an honorary PhD from Mizzou U. I barely made it through high school. And here I was at the helm of receiving this. And it's really humbled me because, you know, many people go 16, 18 years. And the chancellor that night that I received it said, yeah, but Heil, it took you 50 years. So I guess it's a little bit to that. This one's very honorable. I just received the Bill Orr Award. Bill Orr was an outstanding builder, and they give this award to those who build. And I guess I'm the guy, because when it comes to ham radio, that's all I do. Last but not least, we're the only manufacturer in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's the gear we did for Quadrophenia. It was the first quad mixer, the power amps and stuff that we built and sold to so many. That rear white speaker was one of many that was the rear channel stuff. And so that's pretty much the story. There's so much more, but I really appreciate being able to share this with you. I call it the science, and that's really what it is. And I'm really, really ticked that you read these handbooks today. You got to be an engineer to read a handbook. They're usually about this thick, and they mean nothing to us. They really don't. So I wrote my own, and I didn't write this. I compiled it from notes of over 60 years from my mentors like Paul Klipsch. You know, these guys taught me so much. Larry Burrows, the engineer from KMOX, Wes Shum. And we can all can understand it. It's not full of junk and old stuff. And you want to take a look at it. All the stores have it. And get it from our website and I autograph it. So guys, I hate to hold you up all this time. You know, I have a meeting. I have to meet with that thing right there, which is about 20 feet in front of me. I got to do my program for Saturday night. Still playing. I do a lot of recording and stuff. So I love playing, and it really is another place that taught me how to listen. And I do hope that some of this has meant something to you. So thanks so very, very much for inviting me, and I hope that was worth the time. Any questions?
I know someone has a question. Don't be bashful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Bob, let me tell you, I really appreciate you doing this program. It's one of the best we've ever had. And I see you made it out of the grocery store without catching anything.
Yeah, I had a whole cart full of whatever.
I got it. Thank you very much. It was extremely good. This is one of the best programs we've had yet.
Well, thank you. Well, I got more. I come back to do these and we can center on something and spend a whole hour on just one subject. So anytime you want to do anything, I can fill the time. That's for sure.
I learned a lot for sure.
Excellent. Excellent.
I have a question with regard to the ICM microphone and the ICOM 7300.
Yeah.
Bass at -3, treble at +3, and
Yep.
I find that I have to turn my mic gain way down to like 10% if I use any compression at all.
Oh yeah, it has a lot of output. And that was one of the things that we had to do, because some of the ICOMs, you get back into the 735s and some of that stuff, they practically had no preamp in them. And so I wanted, Dr. Inouye wanted me to make a microphone to work on all the ICOMs, and they do. You just have to adjust it because it has a lot of output, of course, but it certainly is a great match for the.
What kind of microphone are you using there? It looks like my GM5 here.
It kind of is.
Can you see? To see if you can see mine.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah,
it looks
that's what this is right here.
That's a GM5. That's what I have.
Yep. This is a microphone we make. It's in a gold line handle. And of course, we have our own custom shop, and we can do any kind of finish. A lot of these radio stations and stuff, they have us finish it differently. We can put their call letters on them and stuff like that. And this is it's the second one from the right on that picture. It's a PR22, but it's basically a gold line. It's a balance line, and it only has the one element in it. And but we've got all kinds of them like that. Here's one I built for Charlie Daniels, the late Charlie. He was a great friend of mine. I built this for him. He went overseas a couple of times and wore, of course, everything was camo. And so we built him a whole bunch of microphones in the camo finish. And then here's Charlie Daniels for you. After the shows, he said, "Now, Bob, I want to buy these." He said, "I want to pay for them because when I quit playing over there, I'm going to walk off the stage and leave all my microphones, all of my amplifiers, and only take my guitar." And he did, so that the troops had something. He said, "There's a lot of musicians over there, but they don't have any gear." Well, they did when Charlie played. So just wonderful stuff. But yep, then that also is a PR22.
That's amazing. Why don't you join us sometime? We do this quite often. So even our business meeting. So you got all the contacts there. Just drop in once in a while.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll do that. Well, I sure appreciate you having me, and I hope that we can come back and do it again. And I want to get out of here and go fire up the organ.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We enjoyed it.
Sure.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it. God bless you.
Okay, what a great program. That was a great presentation. And guess we'll go ahead and finish up with our business portion now. Kent, do you have a treasurer's report?
Okay, as of this afternoon, our balance is $3,072.97. I think I mentioned it during the business meeting the last time. I don't know if I had it during the regular meeting, but I did just want to say thank you to the Vagabond Net for their generous donation and their donation through Jerry Minor again this year. And also, we have had a couple of dues donations come in actually a couple today or yesterday via PayPal with a generous donation with it too. So thank the members for that too.
Thank you, Kent. Harlan, you had an announcement tonight?
Yeah, I do. Thanks. Most of you have received, if you've been in the Oxcom database over the last several years, you received an email from Virginia Enzor. She is the central branch coordinator for Oxcom, and she is an amateur operator. Please respond to her email. Several folks still haven't, and I found out that a couple of reasons why. One was somebody had a wrong email that was no longer valid in the database. So we've corrected that. If you've got the survey, if you've got an email from her, please send her back the survey and just let her know through the survey what you're doing. As far as the courses that we had mentioned, the ICS courses, there's been some confusion in this. The state of North Carolina, not amateur radio. It hasn't come from amateur radio. It hasn't come from Virginia. It wasn't something that people just dreamed up. This requirement to have the most current version of the ICS came from the state of North Carolina. It came also from DHS. It is their requirement to function within their system. So for us to be able to do that, we have to meet that requirement. The 45-day requirement that Virginia had listed in the email, again, that was something that came from the state of North Carolina. And they're finding out that that's really not realistic with the holidays. Hopefully they will change that. I don't know. As far as the county is concerned, as long as you get the courses done in a reasonable amount of time, that will be fine. We're not going to press anybody to walk through these courses in a short period of time. We're volunteers. Everybody's got lives. Understand that last year, and this is when this started, earlier last year, they came and they had all the public safety folks that were involved in emergency management or EOC or command post operations. We all had to go through and take all the new courses. We had to take them again. And it was a process, and they actually gave us 30 days to do it and get it done. It resulted in a huge training evolution to make it happen. I will tell you that one of the courses that they've said that we needed to retake just got revised in June. It was either May or June this year. And so please take time to take those. Take them at your leisure. They're online, 100, 200, 700, 800. They'll take you a couple hours each. If you are like me and you live and breathe this stuff and you feel comfortable, go take the final. If you pass the final, you've passed the course. It's up to you as to what you want to do. But I encourage you to try to get that done at your convenience, but as soon as possible. Once everybody's there and we get people done, we'll start putting people back in the database if you've been removed or if you're not current in it. The second thing, we started this past Saturday, with the online Zoom EOC NCS course. We only had a handful of people. We only had, I think, 6 or 7 maximum in the class. I know some people have already taken it, some haven't. I encourage you to step in next Saturday. We're going to do 3 hours next Saturday and 3 hours the following Saturday and finish it up. Pretty much all you missed was the review of ICS, which would have been good for your courses. But we want you to step in here and get this course taken so you understand what the roles are of a net controller in an emergency operation, how that functions, because it functions different than a rag chew net controller. There's two different ways of managing things. And so we want you to understand how you interface with that emergency management, with that command post, and how you manage your net. And this is critical training that you need to be able to walk in the door. And we do have a large a large role, not only in the county, but throughout the state. I will tell you that every time I talk with the state of North Carolina, and I talk with Virginia Enzor, who is the Central Branch Coordinator, I am constantly reminded that Forsyth County is one of the top counties for the program. I feel very good about that, and that's because of the work you folks do. Makes me look good in their eyes. So I appreciate everything everybody does. Thank you. Thanks, Sam.
Okay, thank you, Harlan. Dale, I notice you're here. Could you give us a repeater update and tell us how you're doing personally?
Okay, very good. I hope this is unmuted. Well, thanks very much, Sam. First, to Bob Heil, thank you very much. Outstanding presentation. I echo Jerry's comments. Much learned and much to look forward to as far as looking at additional research. As far as my condition, I appreciate everybody's thoughts and prayers. We have a couple emergency surgeries under our belt and just pretty weak in recovering slowly. So thankful to be here. This is our first online meeting in several weeks. In terms of the repeaters, I thank Harlan. I believe it was last week or the week before, he gave a quick rundown of new opportunity to obtain access to the 146.64 and the 444.275 machines at Baptist Hospital, as well as the antennas. I'd anticipate that'll probably take place sometime after the first of the year, maybe January, when we get things coordinated. There's a couple things offline as far as preparing some test scripts, equipment, and to make sure we get the most bang for our buck for every visit when we're up there. So that's kind of where we sit with the Baptist Hospital machine. The 145.47 machine is up and running okay, as well as the EchoLink system. We've made a couple updates on that to the server here recently, so hopefully the stability's out there and it's working well, or maybe better than before. So that's about it. Sam, thanks very much, and everybody else for your patience as we get through some of this. We have some other things to look at on the 447 machine going forward. So I'll turn it back to you, Sam, and pass 73s to everybody.
Okay, thank you, Dale. Glad you're doing better. If you need anything, just let us know. Okay, does anyone have anything else tonight? Okay, we've run a little late. That's okay. That's great. And we're if you want to hang around and talk afterwards, you can hang around as long as you like.
If we get a recording, did we get a recording?
Yes, we did.
Good.
That's going to be great. That's going to be a great asset if we can get that posted. Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
So moved.
Okay.
Hey, Sam, we had 53 participants.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed we had 50 plus or minus that pretty much stayed the whole meeting.
Yeah.
No one cut out early.
Hey, Dave Schoaf.
Not